For 10 years, Bionicle has captured the imaginations of kids and adults throughout the world in the decade following the turn of the century. For some, it was just another Lego toy line, but for many it became a second world that would become our main pastime through comics, books, movies, and of course building our favorite characters or our own creations from the pieces provided that we bought with our own weekly allowance. Whether one was a fan since 2001 or came along several years later, we've all had a place in our lives for these characters in this Bionicle universe. But some of us appreciated different storylines to others. While some of us embraced the Paraka, others thought the story was headed in the wrong direction. I'm here to give my opinion on which years I believe to be better than others. And since Bionicle lasted for 10 years, as of right now many will say, it will be a top 10 list. Recently, I have read through every Bionicle book, comic, and short story that has been written, so I have a new mature perspective on each story that did change my original opinion. While reading and researching, I made a rating system for each year. My rating system is based on this 0 to 11 scale of synonyms and antonyms, where I'll be rating 10 different categories for each Bionicle year. I'll be rating the story, the sets, the books and short stories, the comics, the characters, the collectibles, the movies and or online animations, the story location, the mystery in the story, and the secrets revealed in that year. I will not be including the video games, mainly because I've never played any beyond Motunui Online Game 1 and 2. Well, as far as I could get before that game glitched out, and I don't want to discuss something that I was never involved in. The points will be tallied and that will be the score I will give that year. I also will be spoiling everything in the Bionicle world, so if you are still reading through the story, I suggest you leave right now. I am also assuming you know basically what happens each year, because I will not be explaining the story in great detail, only a general overview and my feelings towards them. I also want to make it clear that this is my opinion. If you disagree, write a comment or make your own video with your own list. This is not a list through a lengthy opinion poll that I got off BZ Power. This is only my perspective, and I don't expect everyone to agree. So without any more delaying, let's begin. Number 10, 2009. I felt that 2009 was what really made Bionicle collapse. The story took a complete U-turn away from all the characters that we grew up with and threw us into an environment with a completely different culture. It felt like Bionicle had already ended and they wanted to start a brand new storyline. Perhaps the creators thought that we would want to know Motunui's character, but we never knew anything about him before, so he might as well be a brand new character with the same name. It wasn't very interesting seeing Motunui in a society that didn't know about his significance. I think it would have been much more interesting if Motunui was still inside his own robotic body universe. Perhaps Makuta would keep him inside and taunt him day and night while the Toa and Matoran tried to free Motunui from Makuta's grasp. The only redeeming factor in the story in 2009, which continued into 2010, was the online serial Reign of Shadows, which chronicles the adventures of the Toa and Matoran in the Motunui universe under the dictation of Makuta Pterodax. At least in that story we're still with our old friends and in a universe that we care about. I find the sets mediocre, and because of that I didn't buy any, so I can't go too much in depth about the sets. But the main thing that bothered me was the change from masks to helmets. Being an early years Bionicle fan, that change had an effect on my interest. I also had no interest in the vehicles or any of the larger sets, mainly because I had no attachment to the characters. My lack of interest in the story resulted in my lack of interest in the sets. I found the two books boring, and again, it was my lack of character interest that was the cause. The 3 smaller kids' books were lousy, but those were books for beginning readers, so I'll pass on those. The location also added to my lack of interest. In the January-February issue of the LEGO Club magazine, there was a map inside and I had no care to even look at what was where. The comics and graphic novels were better and there was a large collection for 2009, and I liked how I had a visual to what was happening and could follow along much better. But, I'll say it again, the lack of character and location interest left me disengaged. Although I did not care for the characters themselves were well written and felt real, but I developed no attachment to them, which failed to make the story a page-turner. There were no collectibles to speak of, unless you liked collecting the Thornax that were nothing special. 2009 at least had a movie to make the story more interesting to some, but while I was watching it my DVD player glitched near the end and I couldn't continue the movie. I didn't even care to continue until years later I decided to play it on my computer to find out what happened, and that was sometime last year. The mystery about Barra Magna and the large robot discovered was unexciting, and the revealed secrets about this other world I also found dull and not to my liking. After tallying the points, I give 2009 a 38% rating, a failure in my books. Number 9. 2010. This one is probably of no surprise to any Bionicle fan. 2010 was a rushed, unsatisfying year to finish the failing Bionicle line. Some claim that LEGO wanted to finish Bionicle off so something called Hero Factory could replace it. But I consider Hero Factory a thing of its own and not at all a Bionicle replacement, and I personally was never interested in it. The story, although rushed, did put much of Bionicle to its end with the big robot battle climax. I would have really enjoyed some of the short stories like the Yesterday Quest and the Powers That Be if they could have been finished, and they could have been amazing! But unfortunately, we may never know the end to those tales. There were 2 comics published in 2010, and they were okay since some of our original friends were back and we could see what was happening. Only 1 book was published, and it was only in Polish, but could be downloaded online in English. The book and comics were okay, but both fell under the same fate as the overall story. It was rushed and it lacked real depth. They just wanted to wrap up Bionicle as quickly as possible. The sets also added to my disappointment. Only 6 sets were made and all 6 were simple and only smaller versions of previous sets. Sure, it may have been nostalgic to see the original HOW mask again, but there was no real reason for it. I bought all 6 but never opened them, since none were anything special and were just remakes. The golden armor that came with the only 6 sets would be the only attempt at having collectibles this year. And what was this golden armor? It just appeared with no hype to it at all. New characters like Toa Chiara and Toa Ordi were unfinished since the short story The Yesterday Quest was never finished. We did learn a bit about who Matanui really is, and we find out that he ignored and had no care for the Matoran and Toa that worshipped him. So yeah, Matanui was a jerk. The location was all over the place, but it was cool to see Bionicle in space, and to see the different planets. But the separating and colliding of the moons on the planet was silly. Yes, moons separating from a planet become perfect spheres according to the online blogs, and yes, they can collide into the planet again and not completely destroy everything. Wow. The bi-weekly audio slideshow on Bionicle.com was just an audio blog, and 2010 didn't add any mystery to the story, but could have if the short stories had continued. A great revealed secret was the history of the Matanui robot, told in the online blogs, and that was neat information. Another cool revealed secret was about a great being really being a Matoran, revealed in the Yesterday Quest, and the entering of the Red Star. These secrets had real potential to continue, and I really wanted to know the end, but to this day the stories remain unfinished and we'll just have to accept that. There's not a whole lot to say about 2010, and I give it a 42% rating. Better than 2009, but too rushed and to me not a fully satisfying end. Number 8. 2007. The 2007 underwater storyline was mediocre in almost every category. The story is okay. The Toa Mahri chase the Mask of Life to a forgotten underwater city. The tension is pretty good, with Matanui dying and Matoro's sacrifice. But my problem is with the location. This location was the first time the Bionicle storyline strayed from an island, and being in an underwater environment made things feel out of place and claustrophobic. And with some of the characters having the inability to swim made the underwater environment mainly pointless other than the need for air. Some people may like the story in different locations, but if these locations involve being underwater, that is not where I like to be. I felt the sets looked better in the advertisements than they really were, so good marketing, LEGO. Parapara was the only Baraki I bought, and I was really disappointed in the set, since he looked much cooler on the box. I felt more dissatisfied with the Toa Mahri, at least with the ones I got. I bought Toa Jala and Matoro, and I felt they were both poorly designed, with Jala and the chain on his gun crab thing, and Matoro just looked terrible, like he was on life support. The Toa went from these pretty good looking Toa to these awkwardly designed figures. The boxes they came in were the worst, because once opened, the Toa couldn't be put back and stored easily. You needed tape to keep the cardboard on, or you simply threw the box away. These were not Toa canisters! The first of the 3 books, The City of the Lost, I felt was needed just to set up the story and had nothing but new small characters, so I didn't find it interesting. The next 2 were much more engaging, and I especially enjoyed the Toa Nuva's visit again with the Bahrag, and of course Matoro's sacrifice. I found the comics dull, and mainly because Stuart Sager's style was not appealing to me, especially his portrayal of the Mask of Life. It looks like a potato with a stick man on it. See? Told you. Sager did not give me the look I was expecting, and the comics were unattractive visually. The online Flash episodes had ended, and there was nothing more than the short movies with the very unappealing walkie-talkie style voiceovers. They all sound the same. I found the characters to be bland and uninteresting, and I didn't feel connected to the Matoran or the Baraki. I did feel attachment and interest for the Toa Mahri and Makuta, because we've been with these characters since the beginning. The collectibles were a joke. You only needed to ever buy 1 box, because all that was inside were 7 green squids, and only green. You had to buy most of the Baraki or the playsets to collect the whole whopping 5 different colors that the squids came in. Not going to need a graph for all these collectible gems. There was some mystery with the Baraki and Maxulos/Makuta, but most of it ended up being explained later that year. There was also the mystery of Matoro and where he was and what was happening to him, but we had to wait till the next year to know what happened. The only real secrets revealed was that there was a sunken city and that the Baraki once ruled the universe, which I felt just needed to be mentioned, and then we moved on. After tallying the points, I give 2007 a 48% rating, much better than the previous 2 years, but still not a satisfying story. Alright, now I'm done with the 3 years that I call failures. Now things start to get better.